What is going on, everybody? Thanks for checking in here on a Wednesday. Midweek as earnings season is underway here on the Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Good to have you along. In a moment, we're going to dive in to the latest numbers on Trulieve. I think you all saw the latest print. Some key takeaways. What'd you like? What didn't you like? We'll find that out as we'll dive in that with AV as well. TerrAscend announced some new acquisitions. Feels like we haven't seen an announcement like this where one company's buying out another in quite a long time, given the current state of the industry. And finally, Dan Ahrens, yes, an old face, new again, is back on the podcast here today to talk about the earnings season, as well as many other things. So feel free to drop some questions below, and we'll address those with Dan. So let's get into today's show and welcome in AV here on a Wednesday. Good to see you.
How's it going? Good.
Good.
Good to get the day started with some decent news with Trulieve reporting, and then we got some news out of TerrAscend.
We did.
Which was nice.
Good to see Empty on here. Pumper Chad doesn't even smoke. Pump show.
Sometimes we get some real geniuses in the comments.
We are off and blazing here on a Wednesday, but glad to know I'm Chad. But there we go.
Yeah, it literally has your name on the screen.
You know, I actually got a friend request from a guy on Facebook probably, 5 years ago. And he said, join this group. It's called the Fraternal Order of the Shad. There's 37 members. You have to have 2 Ds. I still show a lot of my friends. We were all going to get together in Vegas and wear these name tags, all 37 of us. But unfortunately, COVID hit. But that would have been epic, to say the least. But here we are. Anthony Varrell with Shad Dales here on Trade to Black. All right, let's kick things off. Trulieve, they reported their latest numbers pre-market this morning. Some of the highlights, some of the numbers, they beat estimates on revenue. They showed strong cash flow, reported 62% gross margins, 109 million adjusted EBITDA. All in all, they beat estimates, as I said. There is $33 million in net loss. But when you factor in just everything from a broad perspective, how would you best categorize this latest earnings report? What's your key takeaway from today?
So it was a solid quarter. I'm not going to get negative. It was a solid quarter, even though it was flat year over year. 298 and 298. I think Trulieve brought online another 30 dispensaries within that time period. So, I mean, there is some finessing to this. Kim guided for $210 million in free cash flow for 2025. That's a hell of a number. She's got a hell of a business. She's still dominating Florida. She's operating at 62%. 62% gross margin, I think 37% net margin, 37% net margin or EBITDA margin, if I'm not mistaken. She's making money selling cannabis. And obviously, I know I had tweeted out earlier about the tax liabilities. Those are going to be there's going to be clarity of that sooner rather than later. There was also the tax return is siloed in the unpaid tax liability. But I mean, Trulieve looks healthy. She was talking about the hemp business. She was talking about just the overall industry at large. They're launching an energy drink. It was
Onward.
Solid quarter.
Yeah.
Upward. So onward and upward. I kind of like to play on.
Hold on. Upward is the name of the drink.
Upward is going to be the energy drink. Onward is the THC drink. So onward and upward, kind of like the phrase.
Stay close attention.
Yeah, it's a play on words. So I mean, it was good to see. Call is positive. Not a lot of color really from the analysts.
Yes.
They opened up 6 dispensaries in the quarter. It's everything's moving forward. They just need some cards to fall in their favor.
GTI, $6 million in less revenue versus Q1 2024. Those numbers came out just right now. But
GTI just came out. Yeah.
Yeah. Ahrens, you can go ahead and block that empty guy.
I am going to ban user and delete comments, and he's gone.
See you, buddy.
Bye, buddy.
Yeah, we saw a couple weeks ago. Immigration lawyer call me, moving to Florida. Got to take his call after the show. But we saw a couple weeks ago, High Tide, they reported some strong numbers on 420. And if you want to get a measuring stick as to how much 420 is growing, Trulieve also reported that they included 20% more units sold, 9% more traffic, and their loyalty program now accounts for 68% of transactions. So curious to see how much long-term moat does this company have with this kind of like consumer retention data. Like, you live in Florida. It appears that retention is key for them. They're selling good product and the numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah. And what Kim mentioned also on the conference call was the fact that they're going to be testing different SKUs,
Yep.
different offers, that they're going to be taking a data-driven approach to how the um, loyalty program works on a go-forward basis. I think it's got around 650,000 subscribers as of right now. That's a big audience to have direct touch points with your consumer. Cannabis is a very sticky business. These dispensaries, a lot of people just gravitate towards what's close to them. So, I mean, if Trulieve's citing their locations in a proper way, creating that relationship with the consumer, the best way to be right in their pocket is with that loyalty program and have a direct relationship, whether it be SMS or some sort of push notifications.
Yep.
It's great, and it's going to be something that I'm sure they're going to grow, and it'll be a big benchmark once they get to the million member mark.
How many
within that program.
subs did you say they have already right now?
600. They reached over 625,000 members as of March 31st, 2025. I think Kim had mentioned close to 650,000 on the earnings call when I listened to it earlier.
That's impressive, huh?
Yeah, it is.
So all in all, we're getting some numbers in right now. Some people categorizing GTI as pretty much flat. I don't want to say the word boring, but is flat.
Let's get into GTI after we run through Trulieve.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is that, revenue was flat, but for the most part, would you deem that as a victory right now, knowing that let's face it, as we've said a couple of times here in the last couple of weeks, there's no new markets online right now. I categorize that as a win.
Like I said, the one knock you could give on the quarter is they did expand their dispensary count by, I think, 30. I could be up plus or minus 3 in one direction. And they stayed flat with the $298 million top line number. That being said, look at the margins. 62% gross, 37% net, guided for $210 million in free cash flow for 2025. The business is moving. She needs catalysts. She needs adult use to happen in Florida. I think we have a long road ahead, but she's doubling down on adult use going into 2026. She knows better than I do, and has her ear to the ground closer than I do with what's going to move in the state. If that seems like a cause worthy of dedicating dollars and cents and attention to, she's going to do that. I think there's already between $20 and $30 million allocated towards that cause already going into 2026. Pennsylvania is a big catalyst for them.
Just going to bring that up.
Federal reform is a big catalyst for them. Trulieve's operating right now in a very good manner. It's a fairly healthy business once you get the tax stuff all figured out. And Kim had also mentioned to shoring up the balance sheet, deleveraging it, getting some debt paid down. They've got $329 million in restricted cash on the balance sheet. So,
well, you and I have talked
that they're healthy.
Yeah, and you and I have talked this with Seth Yakutin the last couple of weeks. This is the whole reason why people are strong on beverage right now, because as we wait and see, it's nice to see these companies are pivoting. They have to. Situation.
So something on the best analyst, or the most insightful question from the analyst on the call, was a term that they brought up called slotting, which I wasn't aware of. So with Delta 9 beverages, they have the opportunity to pay for shelf space within a liquor store. Within the 3-tiered system that alcohol is under within that same store, they are not allowed to pay for shelf space.
Why is that?
Operate this slot. That's just the way it is.
Really?
They can't pay for shelf space. The way that the shelves are oriented are at the discretion of the proprietor of the liquor store. Cannabis beverages do not fall under that 3-tier system yet, which they probably have a collision course with falling under that system sooner down the road via some of these hemp bills. But there are companies that are practicing this slotting practice within these liquor stores. Trulieve is not. Kim had made very clear that they're not paying for shelf space within their current pilot program, which I think they're in 36 states as of right now, or they're shipping to 36 states.
Yes.
As of right now with the beverages. But that was interesting because I wasn't aware that Delta 9 beverages in some jurisdictions did have the opportunity to actually pay for shelf space. And if I was one of those brands, I'd probably be doing it if I had the money and wanted prime real estate within within the confines of that store.
Some of the things where I am at with the liquor control board, basically covering off and handling, the liquors, a lot of liquor stores here in Ontario, they don't favor, and you're right, you can't buy shelf space. They don't favor one brand over another, but what you can do is these in-store promotions. Are those types of things that could be done as well?
Oh, they can. You've heard
Yeah.
me. Anybody that I think we've had on here, beverage, I always ask them about experiential. I know Adam Terry at Can Trip has done some experiential stuff where they had a bus driving around Nashville. I would have to bet that they had some in-store samplings around that. You have to be in store at the point of sale.
Correct.
In beverage.
Correct.
It's why every time you go into a liquor store, you see wine brands, whiskey brands, tequila brands, constantly sampling. There's a very good chain of liquor stores in Fort Lauderdale called Primo Liquors.
Yep.
Every time you go in there, they are sampling something. I'm sure they're charging those brands for that sampling to go on in the store, or getting some sort of preferential price on a per case basis. But yes, cannabis beverages should be doing that. They are doing it. Yeah. And I would expect it to get bigger.
I love the model you guys have in the US, like in Michigan, where my brother lives. Oh my God, some of these party stores, but the guys that own that private cannabis company, Jars, they also have a number of party stores, constant sampling going on. It's almost like an event that goes on all the time there. But yeah, one can only fathom once you start to factor in this as well. But go ahead, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to, that's all a lot of the liquor stores here, ABC, Crown, Primos that I mentioned, they all have sampling, and there's a bunch of people in there sampling the liquors that they're carrying.
How about that one place that's next to the Elbow Room down by the A1A? That place is small but packed. What an unbelievable! I think that's what it's called. It's like 2 places down. Oh, it's a hellhole,
yeah.
But man, it's busy.
Yeah.
Well, look, like we said, beverage is going to be front and center. And Kim indicated a few things last time I had her on. She continues to expand, obviously, in Florida. She also expanded to Arizona and Ohio. Last time she was on, she said, let's just, chill out, relax. There's price compression in Ohio. It'll fix itself. We're still starting to see, and, with more competition coming onto the market right now and some uncertainty on the reform side with the state Senate. Do you believe, there's a lot of people that are investing in this market, so it appears that brighter days are ahead, but do you believe when you hear the term, it'll fix itself? What do you think she means by that? Any idea?
It's going to come to equilibrium. Prices started sky high. Obviously, there's going to be some price compression as the market normalizes. There'll probably be some sort of supply and demand equilibrium that hits. I don't know enough about that market right now from a pricing perspective to really comment on it. Where it could go. There's going to be main signs from GTI's earnings. I know Cresco's there, Verano's there, and Verano actually breaks out their numbers. So we'll get some insights into that market on how pricing's actually going.
Yeah. Raging Gun, good to see you. The boom is coming, boys. Chill out, relax. Delta 9 Beverages, yes. Tilray's online beverage strategy is not failing. It hasn't even started yet. Simon is chess player. He's setting up for what's coming. He's going to need to. So let's wait and see. But
it's one thing I can tell you that's coming with Tilray. It's dilution. So get ready for that.
Yeah. Michael Anthony, which company were we speaking about when it was earnings? Trulieve. Glad to have you on. We talked about expansion in Ohio. So let's now switch and pivot to our next story, which is TerrAscend, who announced an agreement to purchase the Union Chill deal in New Jersey and the Ratio Cannabis acquisition in Ohio, both touted as immediately accretive to EBITDA, which is great to see. I also checked in the press release and a few websites, actually, there's a lot of pros and cons that were involved here. There was a long list of pros and 0 cons. So nice to see, because it feels like it's been years that we've seen an acquisition where one company is buying another, given the current, circumstances the industry's in right now. But very disciplined, as we continue to say, and you got to be patient and know the market you're in. But well done by Jason and his team, right?
Yeah, it was good to see. I've got a position in the company. I continue to buy the stock.
Yep.
It's good to see New Jersey. I mean, I think New Jersey is interesting, as that brings an incremental location with them. They've been at the top of the list as far as maintaining market share in New Jersey. And New Jersey's been a very good market for TerrAscend. They've performed well. I would assume that they're going to be able to make this dispensary continue to perform, leveraging the brand power and leveraging their expertise in that market. Because if it's one knock that New Jersey gets, it's getting saturated, especially with the social equity licenses that are coming online, and there's more retail that's increasing in that state. I think that they'll be able to weather that storm and or have the strategy in place to make that dispensary perform. And then Ohio, let's be clear that New Jersey, they entered an agreement to acquire it. Ohio, they closed it. So the Ohio market is interesting. That's one that Jason mentioned, I think 2 quarters back, it might have even been longer than that, on the earnings call that they were exploring. It's a good dispensary, and these are good. They're accretive acquisitions.
Yeah, I saw that. So no competition within a 20-mile radius in what's called Goshen Township in Ohio, and over $9 million in annualized revenue. So again, very strategic move. And as I said, nice to see, because it's been a while since where one company's bought out another. And yes, we've seen other companies expand, but this is actually an acquisition that we haven't seen in quite some time. So be patient, discipline, good assets for the right price. And what's even more interesting is they outlined in their press release that there's more to come. So we could see more acquisitions like this. And we keep talking about being smart, strategic, and disciplined in a lot of this stuff. But as we see in some ways, prices basically in compression and revenue flat for the most part, you got to be smart with your real estate team and figure out, what's the proper game plan and where you want to set up shop. But it appears that this is a nice little acquisition for TerrAscend. 39 dispensaries now across 6 states. You got anything else we got going on here?
I'm reading GTI right now. They missed. And if I'm reading this right, which I'm pretty sure I am, EBITDA is down significantly.
Yeah, we're seeing this.
EBITDA is down significantly year over year. Their EBITDA March 31st, 2024 was 98 million, and the EBITDA currently is 71 million. That's a pretty big deterioration. I'm going to have to listen to the call. I'm sure Ben's going to address it. This is the thing about reading these things live on air. I don't want to get anything wrong or make any wrong assumptions. At first glance, revenue of 280, an increase of 1% year over year. Cash flow from operations in the quarter, 74 million. Cash at quarter end, 211 million. GAAP net income, once again, GTI is the only company in the space that produces that, 4 cents per share. An adjusted EBITDA of 85 million, or 31% of revenue, which is differing from the number I'm seeing down here. Yeah, I've got to go through this before we really make a...
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Happy Burner said first miss. What was that in 5 years? David Benz, how can you mention growth if revs are flat? Well, yes, I understand revs are flat, but to grow, you obviously have to expand. That's the whole reason. But, we're not going to see it now, but in due time, we will. I'm not sure if I clarified that well enough before, but one thing we also want to mention too, Anthony Cogniglio from New Lake Capital is coming on tomorrow. We're also going to have Seth Yakinton on tomorrow as well for a special Trade to Black. It's earnings week, and that starts at 4:00. And then a quick reminder as well, Charlie from Cresco and Jason and Ziad from TerrAscend back to back will be on Friday as well. Okay, Guap writes net income.
So actually, EBITDA, those numbers adjust on an adjusted basis. EBITDA year over year was down 5.5%.
Okay. Guap writes net income attributable to the company for the first quarter was 8.3 or 4 cents per basic and diluted share, a decrease from net income of 31.1 million or 13 cents in the prior year period.
It's going to be an interesting conference call. I got to hear from Ben and Anthony what's going on, or what's attributing to this.
Raging Gun, tell me more about Auxly's numbers. I keep hearing, I know it's a smaller company, but they've had quite a turnaround story with this company. I've heard from a number of people. Auxly's numbers on the 10th will be positive. Number one selling brand, which is 1964. Did that guy that met with Trump come on your show? Remember you guys said you had him lined up, but I may have missed it. No, unfortunately, we reached out, and I think, not going to lie, I didn't jump the gun. He said he was going to come on, but I think after a meeting, there's probably certain things that he probably had to keep confidential, which unfortunately is a loss, because I was really hoping to get kind of a perspective as to, because the person that was meeting with them had a background in cannabis, but that was a couple months ago, I think.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps up the first segment, and we want to bring on Dan Ahrens. I'm just looking right now, and it's saying device not connected. Let me quick give him a text. and see if he is coming on. 1 second, everybody. Dan Ahrens. Hey, you ready? Anything else? Anybody want to leave some comments below? I'd love to get your feedback. Anything on your mind?
I tell you what, Kim is kicking Ben's ass in EBITDA margin.
Say it again. Kim is kicking
Ben's ass in EBITDA margin. Ben's EBITDA margin for the quarter was 25.7%. Kim's, if I'm not mistaken, was 37%. She's smoking him in that department. No pun intended, but it's good to see, or at least for me.
All right. With that, let's welcome in Dan Ahrens. I don't know if he's ready to go or not. I still see device not connected. What else?
This looks like a shit quarter for them, all things considered.
Does that not surprise you? Like what changed?
Yeah, of course it surprises me. We keep touting them as the best asset in the space. If I had to guess, they're having problems in Illinois and other markets. But like I said, I got to listen to the call before I make any comments on what's actually going on, because right now I'm reading this in real time.
All right. I can hear him. Dan, you there, my friend?
I'm here.
Your camera is off.
We can't see you.
I'm looking at myself.
Dan Ahrens. Dan Ahrens, can you hear us?
I can.
There he is. So from Yahoo Finance to TDR's Trade to Black. Good to see you. Happy Wednesday. It's been a while. How are things?
I'm doing well. Am I on camera now? Can you see me?
We can see you.
You are on camera. Good to see you.
It's just delayed. Yeah.
It's been a while. We've had all these people speculating, why haven't you had Dan on? Is there something you guys are hiding? And I'm like, no, we're not hiding anything, but I love how people just like to think a lot of things. But hey, I started off today's show and it was I had 3 comments saying Pumper Chad, Pumper Show. So anyway.
Oh, I was in the background listening to that. And I can't. Are you guys going to be at Benzinga a month from now? If I see you, I will call you Pumper Chad.
Chad, not Shad with a CH.
Oh, no Shad. He is now Chad to me.
1D, too.
Yeah, I get that probably. I'm not going to lie. 6 to 7 times each day in my life.
I don't want to give you a hard time.
Have you seen the numbers that GTI posted yet?
Oh, yeah. Sitting in the background reviewing them. And a little surprised.
No kidding.
That I don't know. In this small world of cannabis, not covered by a lot of large wirehouse analysts and so on.
Yeah.
These companies get to do a little bit of what they want, and they don't have to be too aggressive in their guidance.
Yeah.
So they have a great history of beating and reporting before anybody else. No, these aren't bad. I mean, he told people a quarter ago to expect a little bit of lightness. We know about price compression, but
Guap makes a
very
good point
slight
here.
miss. Yeah, it's there.
Guap makes a good point here. Green Thumb pays taxes and makes net income. Tough for me to say, quote unquote, shit quarter when they're the only company that can say that.
No.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you can't say anything like that. It's good balance sheet. They're still making revenue. There's reasons to be just a little bit light, and if we're calling it a miss, it's a pretty slight miss.
Yeah. Let's not get carried away, but that's the reality. We don't have any new markets, but we were talking about it earlier, how a lot of these companies now pivoting to the beverage side. You can't just sit and wait. You got to change with the times. But I think we're just seeing and scratching the surface. There's going to be a large focus with a lot of companies that pertain to that. Do you not think?
Yeah. And it's almost a shame that everybody waited as long as they did. Everybody kept thinking, okay, this farm bill loophole, if we want to call it that, is going to get shut down. Now we see multiple states that may or may not shut it down, but it also keeps getting kicked down the road. Getting kicked down the road.
I hear you.
So no, cheers to Kim Rivers for the way she's doing it. I have a lot of compliments for Trulieve and the way they've done it with the hemp company. I think it's a smart move, and a lot of people should have done it a lot earlier.
When did they report? Is it tomorrow?
TerrAscend is tomorrow.
Tomorrow as well. Yeah. Somebody
TerrAscend and Verano both tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, Boris has said, he goes, hey, this is a very small piece right now of our company. And we're not, I don't really want to talk about it that much until it's at least X amount of revenue. But it's there. And everybody should have done it a little bit earlier. Another
188,000. There was 188,000 in trading volume for Trulieve today.
Yeah.
Oh, was pretty low as of 3 o'clock.
I just made that up. The what?
It was pretty low as of 3 o'clock, which is let me look real quick.
I'm looking at the number right now.
All right.
Yeah, it's 188,342 shares.
All right.
Well, Tilray traded 12 million shares, and even Canopy traded 4.9 million shares. And yes, we are still in timeout with all these MSOs and their anemic trading.
Yeah, the volumes are laughable from a dollar perspective.
Nice to see a week ago where I assume that Terry Cole will be indeed confirmed as the head of the DEA when he made the announcement of reviewing the rescheduling of cannabis will be one of the first priorities if he is indeed confirmed, which all signs point in that direction. You saw, I think that day, was it 40 million in trade volume, which is a breath of fresh air, and nice to see this attention. But you can kind of get an idea as to, again, we said this for a long time, of things to come in the event that we do get some sort of rescheduling. But we've seen some recent movement in your ETF. You allocated, I guess, some names like GTI that were in and out. You maybe want to explain what your rationale was behind all that. And I guess I know there's some people speculating online, but I think the whole point here today is just to, we haven't had you on in a while, maybe clarify just some of the approaches that you're taking, especially as we've now entered earnings season.
Yeah, well, let's double back to what you said on, Terry Cole's had the Senate hearings to be the head of the DEA just finally last week, and said very positive things, and the market liked it for one day.
Does that surprise you? Only one day?
No, and it's because of this Groundhog Day world that we're in right now. The market liked it, and after the day ended, we go back into the same pattern that we're in. And that is, look at GTI, look at my screen, traded 209,000 shares today. Trulieve, 188,000. Even, Curaleaf at a much lower price traded 400,000 shares. That's below $1 a share. So, sometimes people talk about, buy the underlyings instead of buying the fund. No, please, God, buy the underlyings. Buy the shit out of the underlyings, everybody, please. Because the way a fund works is if the underlyings are getting bought significantly and going up, then the fund goes up. The fund does not make stocks go up or down. Correct. It's crazy to think that, this iShares healthcare fund is pushing up healthcare stocks. Hell no. If healthcare stocks go up, iShares healthcare goes up.
Gotcha.
If technology stocks are going up, then, a technology fund goes up. It's not the opposite. So that's one little point. The other point is right now, after this ridiculousness that we've been in for the last 4 or 5 years, there's no investors. There's no new investors.
Mm-hmm.
So people see the Senate hearings for Terry Cole.
Yeah.
No one should have ever expected anything in Trump's first 100 days. We didn't have a real DEA head. We had a temporary, and he wasn't going to do anything. And he was on record for being an old school DEA hardliner, doing his job. He didn't care about being pro or against cannabis because he wasn't going to do anything. So Terry Cole said some really positive things, but investors outside of our cannabis bubble are not going to enter cannabis after all the times that we've had Let's say it's peanuts and Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
We've had that so many times. We've been
Dan, that is the reality.
so many times.
This lasted one day, and the number one answer for that is because there's no new investors, and everybody's been down this road that follow this space time and time again, right?
Over and over again. But hey, look how much a lot of those underlying stocks moved that one day.
I know.
But the volume still wasn't high on them. The ETF traded a crazy amount of volume, but the underlyings, the volume was still anemic.
There was a lot of shares trading back and forth and so on. So that's a big step that everybody needs to remember. So the fund itself, a lot of shares trading back and forth. It hasn't really seen much in the way of inflows as of late. It's had a couple of redemption units. Now, let's talk about what happens there. If there's lots of market makers out there, they clear trades through authorized participants. This is the way any ETF works. If they are buying shares from the street, the market makers are then getting long the fund, and they need to do a redemption unit. Simple as that. That's the way any ETF works. And what happens is I will see the redemption unit. They will, instead of me having to aggressively try to sell stocks, sell swaps, and free up cash so we can meet that. No, they've got educated where what they do is they make the fund, even though it's total return swaps primarily, work just like a regular ETF would. And they have a basket of stocks. It's, the stocks that are less than 1% of the portfolio, these little tiny stocks down at the bottom that I bought 4 years ago. They're not really material to the fund anymore. So they will take the top 10, 12 or so positions in the fund and say, hey, we're doing a redemption. Here's our basket. We're going to redeem these top 10 or 12 or so positions of the fund at the end of the day. How does fund accounting work? The net asset value of the fund is always just the closing price of every stock times the number of shares we owned. That's net asset value. So if they're doing a redemption, although we're mixing in a middleman of the swap counterparty, they're going to take X number of shares of GTI, X number of shares of Trulieve, X number of shares of Curaleaf, X number of shares of Cresco, Glasshouse, Verano. I'm looking at my portfolio right now. And they are going to leave the fund at that day's closing price.
Yep. Okay.
Exact. So there's no slippage. There's no gain or loss. It's just those shares leaving the fund, but they're actually technically leaving. We're closing some total return swap on those positions.
So Mitch makes a good point here because you're saying buy the underlying, versus the ETF at times. We like that sort of thing. So he said, for example, when you sell GTI, your largest holding, that caps the upside of the MSO ETF. On low volumes, that impacts the market a lot, seeing sell signals from the top name. I think I'm understanding what he's trying to say there, but
anyway, investors get caught up in what's the fund buying? What's the fund selling? We own almost 19 million shares of GTI. It's by far the largest position in the fund.
Yep.
Full stop. I mean, that's it.
And is there a maximum weight that you can hold for that in the fund?
That is actually a very complicated question. Now, the short answer is no. It's simply no. The long answer is I have 3 different swap counterparties right now, and we work our asses off on making sure the fund has what we call capacity. There's a couple other, cannabis-based funds out there that have copied us. we take the lead on this. They have, who's Dan using the swap counterparty now? We should call those people up. So no, we do a lot of the legwork. We have 3 swap counterparties. The amount of ownership that those swap counterparties are wanting to take at any given time, how much they're going to charge on the swap, how much interest I'm earning on all of my collateral and interest. We earn a hell of a lot of interest. Those things are always moving targets. And sometimes people will see large end of day trades. That's us taking
Yeah.
1 million shares out of one swap counterparty and moving it to the other swap counterparty so that we can save the fund money. Sometimes one swap counterparty is charging more than the other, and we'll swap firm to firm on that as a good deal. We're also, again, on any given month, any given time, one swap counterparty is more aggressive about wanting more swap business, and one swap counterparty might not want more swap business. Everybody has ownership limits, dealing with that stuff every single day.
Yeah.
One interesting story is there's one state out there where the state regulators are getting wonky about, if you own X amount of a company that has a dispensary license in our state, then we want you to have an office in our state, and we want you to do some reporting and fees and stuff like this. I'm not going to mention how much it is. I'm not going to mention what state it is.
That's going on? Really?
Yeah. There's and every state's different. See, that's the problem with not having a real federal framework here.
No kidding.
You have
God, this gets more confusing.
So what you're saying is, when some of these block trades happen and the conspiracy bells start going off on Twitter, let's say for these million share trades where you're switching swaps to save the fund money, acting as a fiduciary, that's the reality.
That's exactly the reality. And again,
just so we're clear.
Yeah. So that's saving the company, that's saving the fund money, saving the shareholders money, and me trying to do what's best for the fund. And I've always been fighting the battle of making sure the fund is set up, because you remember when we were talking about peanuts and Lucy pulling the football away. Well, there's been multiple times where we thought we were getting safe banking, where we thought we were going to get federal reform.
Yeah.
And we thought it was going to, the fund's going to get a whole lot of inflows, because it's happened at other times.
Yeah.
So I always want to make sure that capacity is available where the fund can accept $100 million next week if it needs to, or $200 million or $300 million. We want the fund to be working that way. There's something I talked about on our Alpha Nooner this past week that I think can be a very good educational session if you'll let me walk you down a path about the swaps. I've seen chatter out there in the conspiracy theorists like, oh, are they really shorting? Or are they really feeding shorts? Or are they long shorts? Or are the swaps bad? But let's say that we want to add $1 million worth of exposure to GTI.
Okay.
So I'm going to buy, let's just call it 1 million shares. We'll say it's 1 million shares. I'm going to buy 1 million shares of GTI. So I talked to the swap counterparty. They give us 1 million shares of total return swap on GTI. First question, do you think they're giving us that naked? Do you think they're not covering their sides, their risk? Or do you think they are just at risk for 1 million shares of GTI? I mean, if GTI goes up 2% the next day, then we're going to have, 2% more of GTI. Or if it goes down, they're going to give us less. So first of all, do you think they're going to do it naked? Just give us an empty promise for 1 million shares of GTI? No. They're going to want to hedge themselves. They have their risk departments. They're going to want to own 1 million shares of GTI. Also, I can't always prove it on a daily basis because they only file 13Fs on a monthly or quarterly basis, depending on how much they own, what the requirements are. But people can see the 13F reports. They can see that these counterparties own the shares. Are you with me?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we know that they're doing that. Are they doing more? Are they shorting? So first of all, you agree they're not going to do it naked. They're going to own GTI long and give me 1 million shares of exposure to GTI.
Yeah.
Now the next question is, do you think they're also shorting? No. That would double their risk to the wrong side.
Yeah.
Think about it. If anybody's listening, get out your pencils and papers and write it down. I mean, the risk, positive and negative.
Okay.
Now, I have no idea what a desk on the other side of the world is doing with Nomura. I have no interest in that. I know that there's total return swap desks that I'm dealing with and I see their 13F reports, they own the shares long. And believe me, when I brought up this example of, a particular state that's hassling a counterparty about how much they own,
but could someone elect to take the other side of that trade and Nomura oblige?
I guess
In theory.
In theory, a different desk. Nomura is a huge company.
Huge,
worldwide. So we see the 13F reports. We know what they own long. The desks that I'm dealing with, we know that their ownership limits. And you can talk to Tim Seymour or other funds out there. No, I am always dealing with ownership limits, swap maximums, holding maximums, one firm versus another. I am always doing that work to keep everything working properly. But
what does Ben Culver not understand? What does Ben Culver not understand then? Because I know this went back and forth on Twitter. I think it's kind of died down, but I understand where his frustration is. I think this is not a good look for the industry when we start fighting amongst ourselves. But does he have legitimate concerns, or is there just an idea that he doesn't understand how the ETF is structured?
Well, I don't know if he really doesn't understand. I think he's a smart guy. And then that makes me question, well, what are his intentions here or something? So if there's no fight, we're one of his largest shareholders.
Yeah.
So we own just under 19 million shares worth of GTI. Again, full stop. It's our number one holding. We wish that stock the very best. We wish Ben the very best.
Have you had direct conversations with him recently, or just
Well, no, it's been a few months now. But no, we talked. We always attempt to educate and answer questions.
Yeah.
So no, again, it's our largest position in our fund. We're obviously a fan of GTI.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's a public stock. It's a public stock that myself and any investor can buy and buy and buy, or sell and sell and sell.
Correct.
And if you don't like that, don't be a public company. But it's a public stock. It's a public liquid stock to buy and or sell.
So Dan,
anything else, you'd have to ask Ben. So
when you look at these latest numbers of Trulieve, you also see the announcements with TerrAscend, what they announced. Like, how are you assessing, I guess, the industry right now? You're looking at, like, are you favoring cash flow now over top line growth? Like, how are you viewing this right now?
It's a weird battle where I don't even like getting into the quarterly earnings all that much. They're important. And the only reason I'm saying I don't want to get into them that much is because we have the hemp industry that shouldn't even exist as an industry, growing billions of dollars. So if anybody's saying, GTI they're not growing, they're basically flat. No, it's because the hemp-based industry is growing like crazy. And that needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed. Simple as that. What was that, Anthony?
Brian Dombrowski in the comments is about to get triggered with the hemp hate. But
Brian, we're not hating hemp. We're not hating hemp. We're just spitting.
You are correct, though. I mean, the way that it was structured and the way that it was deployed, it should have been for industrial purposes, not for intoxicating products.
Yeah.
And
so
here we are.
Yeah. Total sales. If we combine the hemp industry and the beverage industry with the legal dispensary model industry, it's growing like crazy. It's growing great. We have a lot of things that need fixing. Mm-hmm. And everybody has got tight-lipped about what we hear behind the scenes may or may not be happening because, one, we've been wrong so damn many times because we keep being told that change is a coming, and now everybody's gotten tight-lipped. Even look at the other CEOs in the space. Boris doesn't tweet much anymore. I can't blame the guy. He gets cyberbullied every time he does. I get cyberbullied every time. too.
He's coming on Monday to talk about the earnings print.
Yeah.
Well, Boris is a gentleman and a professional, and I appreciate the hell out of him.
Yeah.
So.
Raging Gun writes, cannabis could be a huge sponsor for the UFC. Newsflash, you actually can sponsor with the UFC. I know that because I've actually represented a few companies and have sold some packages to the UFC. I've also had a few cannabis companies sponsor Floyd Mayweather. And I know the cannabis has actually sponsored the PFL as well. So, yes. Our good friend Noah Hammond writes, Danny, Chad, and baby daddy. Good to see you. Thanks, Neo. Call me Chad.
CH and 1D.
I know. Where's Brian? Brian Dabrowski, federally illegal dispensary model. Boris is in hemp now. I wonder why, he writes. Yes, he has pivoted. Smart man. So again.
Hey, one other thing. Before I was on, you guys were talking about TerrAscend a little bit. Cheers to Jason for being a little aggressive, doing some acquisitions still.
Something we haven't seen in a while.
Absolutely. But let's go higher level. What do you guys think that means? Should anybody be acquiring anything if we don't think some federal reforms on the way?
Well, the press release did say more to come. Look, people hate saying this, but I think it's all progress. Even when you have a potential member, a guy that's going to be confirmed potentially as the head of the DEA, even mentioned that in his press conference last week.
Yeah.
Like, it's just President Trump announcing 2-3 weeks ago. What was that, Anthony? Pressuring Congress to get safe banking to pass?
Well, no. The President Trump did not announce that. The Cannabis Business Times, the Cannabis Herald. Forgive me for butchering the publication.
Yeah.
But two staffers
was anonymous.
Told them that two anonymous staffers supposedly told them that Trump was pushing Congress to pass safe banking, which still hasn't been reintroduced yet. And then they were actually on Twitter today doubling down on it. I don't subject myself to that kind of conversation anymore. I think we learned very, very quickly in the early days of this platform. I'm
going to backtrack what I just said there and say I was wrong.
Yeah, you got to be correct when we're talking about those kind of things. But I don't take anonymous staffers seriously.
No one should, and no one should take any of the whispers, and because we've had way too many. Do I still hear whispers? Do I hear things going on behind the scenes? Maybe, yeah, but it's all conjecture and this and that. But back to Jason Wild and TerrAscend.
Smart and disciplined.
It's smart, it's disciplined, it's immediately accretive, and but still, is that a positive? I mean, does it mean you probably think there might be positive things on the way if you're going to be doing acquisitions like that? Yeah, probably. Without any time frames, without any projections about federal reform, I have to think that's Jason's mindset versus some other people that might be.
I mean, if you thought that it was going to be status quo, nothing was happening, and the fundamentals were going to continue to decay, there'd be no reason to go acquire assets.
Exactly. That's all I mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jason's smart. And I mean, you want to talk about execution, there's no better person than Ziad as well. But look forward to reconnecting with those guys on Friday. But to your point, Dan, Irish writes, I bought a bunch of CGC in the 80s and continue to buy in the $20s. Things are going to happen. So, obviously that's your choice, but I don't want to sway you either way. But I will say a lot of speculation there, Dan, with regards to Mr. Wild potentially making that acquisition and thinking, does he know something that maybe somebody else doesn't? But I don't want people to
don't even take it that far. No, I just think it's a positive forward mindset.
Yeah, I hear you. Brian Dombrowski, there's no movement because they are all waiting on the farm bill. There's movement, my friend. There's definitely movement. I don't know how it's all going to shake out when it comes to that farm bill, but I keep hearing, like, we had Michael Bronstein on, things seem heading in the right direction with regards to PA. Then I had a few comments from people from the hemp industry that comment on my LinkedIn post is saying it's not happening. So I think that's
what's not happening. PA?
Yeah, but obviously,
let's talk about that real quick. There's a lot of positive movement in PA. We've been hearing it for a while. You got the governor, we have stuff on both sides of the aisle. It was a curveball that they dropped. It got through committee to have the state-run stores. But I hope anybody with any sense knows that particular aspect is going to be dead on arrival because it's freaking illegal.
We touched on that.
It's illegal under federal law. But you know what? Here's a positive spin for you. Does that not still rattle the cage a little bit for federal reform? Oh, we can't have a state-run model and have state employees and state stores debanked and everything else.
Good point.
Doesn't work.
Very good point.
Maybe we need to have some freaking federal reform and banking fix these things. And then maybe if they really wanted to have a state-run store, they could. But no, it's dead on arrival. But that aspect is dead on arrival. There's still a whole lot of positive. It's going to happen. Adult use in Pennsylvania is going to happen pretty soon.
Or the Senate or the House Democrats in PA still believe the Biden administration for reclassifying cannabis. Maybe they're still hung up on that data point.
Brian writes, PA, we better get on the same page before it's too late. Oops, too late. Looks like Big A is coming for both sides. Michael Bronstein, I respect very much. And that was just a negotiation tactic where things began as far as state-run dispensaries. That is dead on arrival, like you said, Dan. But more importantly, real hardcore negotiations are beginning, and that'll only become even bigger come next month. But we hear positive things. That's great.
Big Alcohol is going to own the hemp beverage space one way or another. They see it. They want in. The WSWA, or the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, did a fly-in into Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Part of that initiative was lobbying on D9 beverages.
Yeah.
That's old money.
Yeah.
That knows the way Washington works. They know the way state level politics work. That industry is going to wind up owning hemp beverage at the end of the day, more than likely.
Yeah.
They already own the distribution channels.
Yeah.
You see the bills in all these states that are mandating that hemp beverages are going to reside in liquor stores. They're not in ABC Liquors right now and Total Wine and Spirits nationwide. That's not by coincidence. That is calculated. And there's nothing wrong with it. They've got the infrastructure and they've got the capital, and they'll roll it up and streamline it.
I think you're right. I do think you're right. Guap makes a good point. Brian, if you're listening right now, which I know you are, you should come on our show sometime. It'd be great to have your perspective on a few things.
He has to wear a shirt, though, that says "Hi, Hemp Haters" if he comes on the show.
Dan, listen, tell the team we say hi. This is good to clarify a few things, but you know what? The most important thing is the solution with everything is communication. So with that, I think we need to have you on more often again. We had you on once a week, but no longer this 3-4 month hiatus, but it's good to see it. Good to connect. Tell Mackenzie and know that we say hi, and great job, obviously, on the Alpha Nooner podcast as well. And most importantly, as I say, third time here, let's keep in touch. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Noah, you SOB. Thanks for having Dan on, Chad. No problem, Neo. No problem. All right, that's a wrap. So again, quick reminder, we have Anthony Cogliglio, New Lake Capital, and then it'll be nice to get Seth on tomorrow. We're going to have him on after Anthony.
We're also going to hear about Anthony's trip to Germany.
Good point.
He was at ICBC. It's going to be interesting to hear his key learnings and takeaways from the ICBC conference in Germany. Anthony's usually got a pretty even-keeled take on what's going on.
Well, I think it's great because honestly, he's thinking about investing in the European market. So that's like that to me is telling. And we keep hearing it's 3 years behind, but the thing that, yes, it might be 3 years behind, but it's not going to take that long to catch up because of obviously the number one messaging that we keep talking about, which is medical first. And there's programs and backings from actual governments within certain countries. And that is something that's rarity in comparison to what we're dealing with here. But thanks to everybody that gave a like and watched my Evergreen video about cannabis going federal yesterday. It's got close to 20,000 views, but I posted one last week on Terry Cole and that announcement. biggest viewership ever on any video we've done here at Trade to Black, 250,000 views. So we're growing. And it's great that people are commenting and liking, because we obviously want to get this content into new eyeballs and new viewers, and to attract more people regarding this industry. So big thanks to everyone out there. Mr. AV, Baby Daddy, as they call you, Noah Hammond, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll be right back at this 24 hours from now.
Go Cats.
Go Cats. I'm predicting a Toronto Maple Leaf victory. They're going up 2-0. We'll find out, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. In the meantime, scan that QR code, get our takeaways from Trulieve's latest numbers, as well as GTI's latest numbers. So if you want a recap of all the latest earnings from GTI, Trulieve, and a few others, make sure to log on tomorrow morning, scan that QR code, become a Baked In newsletter subscriber. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hey, everybody. Stay connected here. The latest Trade to Black podcast. Another great episode under the belt. What'd y'all think? Do you like what we had to say? Please leave any comments below. And as usual, make sure to subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. Check us out on Apple and Spotify. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to smash that like button, leave some comments, as I said before, and subscribe to our channel, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everybody, for watching.